Yakaya yuxatinich the katyuhan. De hakrewusaya adat mercy. Dasaway tlekhakinach. Dasaway tlengitkinach. So we started off with the question about mercy and tlingit, and there's quite a few of these sort of concepts I think really work well as a single word in English. But even in English, there's like so many different meanings on it. Because yeah, you could say, well, he had mercy on that deer and he took it out, so he killed it. Or you could say they had mercy on that person and didn't kill him. But then there's also a lot of biblical references to mercy. So one of my thoughts was leaning towards to have pity or to have compassion. And this we can see in the speech by Na Tla. I just want to look at this for a second. So you see, Ishandain at da tunati. So looking at this example, I think it's good to talk about Ishan for a second, because I think teasing has sort of ruined Ishan a little bit, because we always think of it as like, oh, you poor thing, because it is used teasing in a lot of ways. But I think at the core of it is pity and compassion, even though it's used for teasing. Although there's some other ways that have to do with suffering as well. And we'll look up some examples just by looking at Ishan Dain. So when you put Dain on the end of certain verb roots, and Ishan is a verb root, it turns it into a verbally, to do something a certain way. And pitifully is one way that it works for here. So looking at that verb tunati, that tells us that it's na conjugation, which opens up the doors for a lot of other sort of uses of the verb. The second sample says Ishan dain at da tu te du tu yewune. So, thinkers, how is that one functioning? It's Ishan dain at da tu te. What is going on there? The first one's a command form. What's this one? I'll put it in the dictionary tonight. What do you think? Can't be the command.
Like around it, like da tu, inside of like the compassion part of it.
Yeah, so at da is about it. So you could say, you could take this first one, and if you're really lamenting because you're having a hard time, you could say Ishan dain akhda tunati, have pity on me. If someone else is suffering and maybe someone's not being as compassionate as you think they might be, Ishan dain du da tunati. So that gives you a sort of thing about the for blank to have compassion for n. And this, we would write this ka as n right now. So we see the at da, but maybe, I don't know. It says ka da, but it says Ishan dain at da tunati, where I would expect have pity on him would be du da tunati. And where at da tunate would be just generally have pity, have compassion for something. That looks like the something to me, but maybe that would, yeah, I think that is the something. The second one, at da tu te. There's quite a few of these T verbs, like kuste and sate. And I would imagine ti, which would be noun forms of the verb to be. So kuste is a verb or a noun form for life. And kute, with that, again, with that short. So you get the minus I and you got a short high stem. Kute is weather. So you would expect ti to be being, although people don't really use that word. The noun form sate would be identity. So you could say Lingit Sati, the identity of being Lingit. So in this case, Ishan Din at Datu Ti, I would say is a noun, the noun form of compassion. So that gets us some places. I want to look at a few Ishan Din things as well. If you have any thoughts, I'd love to hear them. So we get to this one. Ishan Din du'in yuchat kawashu. I suffered with him, staying up all night to care for a very sick person. So suffering is Ishan Din, you, object pronoun, kawashu. This was Shakshani used this verb. You can't imagine how much we suffered when people didn't want our language. So Ishan Dane, and then you get Kawashu. So Kawashu has to do, that's the suffering part. But the Ishan Dane has to do with pitifully. And it's really interesting to think about that pitifulness, whether someone's supposed to be having pity on you or you're just in a pitiful state. There's an L classifier version of this same verb. So, douche, Ishan Dane, use a kautlashake. They are tormenting the cat or torturing to persecute. Yejane teen, Ishan Dane, you ye kaututlashu. We tormented you, made you desperate with so much work. That shouldn't be, or maybe it should be, the motto of the Tlingit language teachers. Probably not, but Yejane, so with work, Yejane being a noun, Ishan Dane, you, ye, y'all, kaututlishu. So what if I wanted to say, so if I took this example, Yejin 18, Ishan Dane, you ye kaututlishu, and I wanted to say, you tortured me with work. You tormented me with work. It's probably being dramatic, but you know, what would change?
Khat would be the first one.
Yeah, so 18 Ishan Dane, you khat. What about the verb? You khat. I would expect kaiseshu. Yechin 18 Ishan Dane, you khat kaiseshu. What about I tortured you with work? Since we're on the subject of torturing with work, well, I better think of some intense homework for this weekend. Yechin 18 Ishan Dane, you Since you got it right, I will not torture you all with work over the weekend. But just sort of look, as you look up phrases, you can sort of see these things. What are some other thoughts? Because if we're trying to, but we also could find out, how did the old people come up with concepts like pity or mercy? So if I look up in the Dauenhower Finding Guide, just the word mercy, I see Lord have mercy in Tlingit, so that it's been translated. So this is tape 275. So we can go to tape 275. And it's probably gonna take a little bit of listening. And I don't think we'll do it here, but I'll go ahead and put a link for tonight's class, and I'll put the link in the chat as well if you folks want to have that. What is it? 275. Oh, I got a
30,
Oh, go ahead.
20 time, 22:30. So it's after that. Above mercy, there's some time.
Oh, the time marker. Yeah, gonna sheesh. Okay. So let me find 275. Uh-oh. I don't have to say 275. I've got 257 and then it goes to 281. So I will look around and see if I could find that one. Probably our best bet. And there might be a written version of this. Okay.
Sounds like you have some homework to do.
I've got some digging. I'm gonna have to, okay, so let's go back to this. So if I was gonna use this as a template, and I'll say Yejane teen, Ishan Dane, Yush Kuk Kwash Shu. I am going to torture myself with work. A bold prediction, but just sort of seeing like the process in my brain as I'm sort of identifying the parts that I could change. So the focus tends to be, really on the prefix and the object drifts back and forth between the preverb and the prefix. So those two spots are the ones I really focus on. So I changed ye to sh to the self, kuk, kwa. But if I have sh in the front there as the object, the classifier must have the D in there. So it adds the D component. That means it should be sh in the future. Or just L, sorry, not sh, just shu. But don't go to yourselves.
Une,
Ah,
I was having this thought several years ago, Tom Thornton went to Juneau, and I forget his Tlingit name. Tom. But anyway, in his talk, he played an old short video of these women that were picking berries, I think maybe in the Huna area. And before they went onto the beach to pick, they were saying, they were talking to the hoots and saying Ishon Dane. And I can't remember exactly what they were saying, but it was really powerful. And I think what they were saying is to have mercy or to have pity on us. And I've never seen that video since.
oh, wow. I have seen it as well. Ajayit I think is his Tlingit name.
Oh, goodness, sheesh.
Oh, it should be, sorry, I've got the first part wrong. Yan Jayit Cry is from hunger. So looking at these things, I believe, even though so if the one thing we should probably look up here to really learn how to use this verb, and again, like looking up a verb in the verb dictionary, figuring out how to use it in all these different ways. So the one thing I don't know, is there an object or a subject? And the reason I don't know is because none of these have subjects in them. So what I can do is I can go look for it. So I'll just try pity and see if that gets me anywhere. And it's just here. So I'll go to T and go see if I could find this. Whole bunch, like a gajillion verbs. Hatun, ayach, aetinach, hatuqa, haqiqa, kliye. Here's tu, adatuyati. And I would expect it to be right here, but I don't see it listed. So the next step, we'll go over here. We'll see if it's been written out yet. We'll try these ones. Care about. It's probably that one. So there's an object, tu, it's a na verb, ti, da, so that's to think about. So if you're changing, if you put ishan dain in front of that, that might be the magic sort of secret, which I would guess. And so if you go here, but you see itunati. So object verbs, so a verb that only has an object, if you're putting it in a command form, it usually is going to have the object pronoun in there, like igake, be good. The I must be in there because it's an object. You can't just toss it out. The command form of things, like we'll just look at, oh, there's an object there. We'll close this for a second. Go down to something that has a subject, to carry something. And if we look at the command form of this, so, okay, there it is. Open. So we see gati. The conjugation prefix is there. There's no second person pronoun. For a command form, there is usually no second person pronoun unless it's a plus D classified. So you would say gati, ach, gati. So ach is adach, and then gati is to lift something. So lift it off of it. But if I was going to say put it back, I would probably say kuchte itati. So it has to have the I in there. So when I look at that, so that was my sort of just doing this verb kind of sleuthing. But if I look this up, ada itunati, care about it. When I switch back to the verb dictionary and I go back to, I'll just look at PD again. Ishandain at da tunati. So now I'm left with thinking, that's a subject pronoun, perhaps, but we don't really know. If it was plural, we would know. Or if the second one was maybe a sample sentence like, I have compassion for them.
Renee,
Ah,
do you remember that in that MOOC where that woman posted that all those hymns or those Christian songs?
oh yeah.
That so there's one, I was just looking through it. There's one, let's just praise the Lord. And there's two lines in it. It's number 21 in that handout, but there's two lines. It says, for he is good, for his mercy endureth forever. And the way they have it, it's the way they have it, she has it translated, and I guess it's Vesta Dominic's, is Duke-18 Chatlech Ishandain Achda Tuati.
There it is.
There you go. Well, I mean, that's, yeah, so I mean, you're just knocking right on the door there.
It's sheesh. Yeah, and so like, this is, sometimes we got to do some of this investigative stuff. I mean, if we have a speaker with us, we can ask them. But the other thing too is like, if you're working with the speaker and you're asking them for some kind of verb, and then if they give it to you like this, ishandain tuwati, and then we say, so then when we see these different examples, akhda, now we know that that is where who's having the pity. So I would expect if we rewatch that video, we see the elder, who I believe was Lily White, perhaps from Huna in that video, and she's talking, she says, Hashit kuhas, Ishan hada tudnaiti. That's what I would expect. Ishan hada, around us, tudnaiti. You all do it. But that would be as long as it has a subject pronoun, which would be, I would then expect if you were to say, now let's say I've been made the king of Alaska and I have decided to spare this person from execution. And I was giving a speech about how wonderful I was, which I'm not doing, I'm not trying to curse myself, but I might say, or this fictional person might say, Ishandain duda tukhwati. That's what I would expect if it's going to have a subject pronoun in it. Is I had pity on the man, the person.
It seemed to me, I found a speech by Malcolm in Macbeth, where he says, when there's no mercy left. But I can't find anything that resembles what we're saying. So, but that's another source for some of these old words.
Okay. Yeah, what? Sheesh. Yeah, so we can sort of go through these, especially as we start to scan more of these and get more
Oh, yeah.
text recognition, and sometimes to retype some of these things. That gives us something to look at.
Yeah.
Okay. Other thoughts or other things you folks were thinking of? Okay. And yeah, Gunshish, the feeling of sorrow and compassion. Seems like Ishandain really seems to fit pity pretty well, but maybe there was something else about mercy, because mercy also has to do with forgiveness. But I think if you say Ishandain kada tuwati or Ishandain kada tuti, that would be compassion for people. That means you're trying to be understanding and think about what people are doing and stuff like that. Okay. Cheesh. So we talked, so I know we had a combined class on Monday, but I believe last Wednesday we were talking about coming up with some language to talk about migrations. Does anybody have anything they'd like to share?
Got something I could share.
Oh.
See if I can get this open here. Okay, I'll share my screen with you.
Sheesh.
Okay, here's my go at it here. Talk on ku doc anet island. Ha tluk kandan ki on ki.
Kakathlanik,
Kadan kli on ki awe. Ha ganak tedi shuka kle chak ha we at ke ha usi doc. Tu tuks kalnik on ki klawakhan. Clock on de ha ta usi doc too. Ha ani ganach you do a sock wash dan kinok Pleasant Harbor. ha yechna ku'u ganak tede shuganak hedu dach kicks ani nakichan hunachan tikdak hata usidak tsu tikade ganak tede yuduwasak kushte hit ka kutit hit ku'u kunak lingit an he ha shuganak ha ganak tede ha shuka wushtin ganak tan dakha lingit ani Tish.
Ekecha. Atle
Wanna-
Chish. Yeah, Annette Island, Chak Oe Tak on, you do a sock. Yeah, you that too, Wutusaku, Akoa, Sutskan Aye, that Hasku, ooh, way on. Chishaya ha in Kaini, gi away at that. Kahuan ish, played the Hinoecha Nakawan, Yisiku, Duktuk. Guksa away, way tan, Kati. Akahoe wushtach awats et wetan. Question kat kadakun away du katago husatian kakwan ish. Du kak has a day away with art day. Au sakuch. Has ye away with art a kach away. Ye yaw saka. Yank away ye wune wish kashni. Just a dot aya you to the tani at eka at wune yag duk tood wushtach awats at Hanakawanik ka Jayis ka hatustin Kelkadane a dot to watan Hechosaku dak at sawe Ishan Dane aya a daye to wati at jawe techosaku ya ye that Sheesh.
Tish. Quick question, if you don't mind.
Ah,
Did I get that right? I was trying to talk about the island nearby Tlawak. And when I said Tlawakhan, I was trying to refer to, or like when I said Kix Ani Nakikhan, to the north near Kix and near Tlawak.
so like for landforms, those are really interesting because to be neighboring it or to be nearby, I guess it kind of depends if we need to travel. You might say Kesh Unashle. It's not far from there. Khan, my guess is that Khan really works well for living things, and then Tuat works well for non-living things. Just because Achana and Irsachan, they all seem to be related to these. But I've heard speakers use Khan for like a chair is next to me or something like that. But it really has to do with this real proximity. Like maybe if they're almost touching, they could be Khan. But yeah, we'll look at some examples and see what we could find for that, how they would say it's next to this thing and it's near this thing. I don't know if anyone else has thoughts on that. Wasayi tu wu chuan.
Tish.
Ah.
If nobody else is gonna go, I'll go.
Ish.
Okay, second here. Share my screen. Okay. Sorry. Makshagun dak yi in kakawa nik. Oops, sorry. Went the wrong direction. Okay. What shachin gune ye aya na dula dut flauk. Sorry.
Asa.
Ye has wasaka. ya sit kuta kata ua at kaya tayahini ak aya kauflehash yak tak uk inak hawistak Thomas Bay you do a sock English chinak takwedi yochat du sagen taku kwan taku naku sha wutu wahin nak yes at Devil's the Mountain you do a sock English chinak du sani du shot du kach kauflagao du cake in at away has ushdach kwan achu ik kedi has kuatin kich khan ke has usidak ka khu ke kutunu shika kahuna kade awakuk ak yakdak kataku suka ku Petersburg aadé kutuatin ya jekat hini ya kakwan adi has kuatin with gas suka chayutle at wuskuwu awa sorry awa hech gudach sawe yi yagu we hashahini sukach haji yes ye yanaket kich ye yawaka jiye hin ji hin dach sukha adi and it goes on but it's not as complete hoocha
Sachonach yik cheese.
Gonna cheese.
Ye awa yik talkanach kusha wan kanin zadati tuchwatang. Atu sawa ha in husati you ya ha kagu konkian has to in husati. Kaidihina wechwa achwe kiksati. You has watan pawakshi. Yes, our car. Uhana it talkanach kusha aye hawutien to klewe an kashaku awuhi. Ha tea hitan ake hasutien so. Koachtu acho awe dakawe di shasha kike hasutien so. An kashaku. One kanins. Haswatut an yasha shaki ye awecho atlin at yatlat atuwasagu gwellwe hoods hooch chadasa atas yawakwan ya hastu tuwasagu ko witlat kika ye hasku uwense eshingit ketli ko the katat de aya has our shayan Aqa away te konachawe te wushkataya hasakawa chak take aya atayi chwe the katwe te wash on away hasakawa do aya has to yagu ya yidat away acho aye ti yesu we take gudach konach tag gudach away we take Kaidi na we khat ya sapa we kleinach we ka khasakuguksa achu we klagu tiki kesh kun kak gwanik ko Katu asagu has our she just the katato has our city gwell cejig siti awe wait tlagutiki cadanjach guch siti. Be awe chwaach. Gun cheese. Adusa. Which again?
Yaduchat.
Dasa?
Yaduchat.
Ah, gun cheese.
Screen share. Los Angeles, away chat kudzati. Los Angeles, chumash ka tongva, ka kits aniyati. Jing ka tlech du kutagu, ach kechat wuzidak. Portland, aadé kutuatin, ach klad ka ach ish ka chat. Portland, Multnomah, Wasco, Cowlitz, Cathlamet, Clackamas, Chinook, Tualatin, Kalapuya, Molalla, Katsuaniyati, Eka Kadachadu Shudu Katagu, Ach Kecha Uzidak, Dantakehini Klingit Ani Ade Kutuatin, Akshat Kachat Gunath Chish.
Kecha away. Gun cheese. Ach tu yake has to sako to achi. Ishukatku. California ka Oregon. Kleinawe you katank kuistien you. Klidzia has to GK to you that ko. Hasu has to asaku iti yanach kikuklitsino has to you katangi. Shukatku. Stikatya. Ich ki ani kachaya kayak Alaska ani kach Hawaii. Stikat ich katuasaku. Echwasaku wanach sawe kesh katuashku no how you katangi kusti. Da you dat ko akegurtsin ye we hatuati. Chish echa. Yeah.
Oh, nay, mine's not done yet. I'll share on Monday.
Okay. You guys switch over and reflect on what we're talking about and move on to the next thing. And yeah, let's just keep it going. If you didn't get a chance to share, and we said migration, so yeah, like whatever comes to mind. So I just want to issue a challenge and then see what happens. And the most important thing is just hearing everybody talk. It's just so medicinal to just hear people talking and just sort of getting to this point where we're communicative in the language. It's so important. Sheesh. So I found this phrase "hey nach awu," which would be nearby. Siri don't like it, but whatever. Hey nach awu would be nearby. I think hey nach also works pretty well. And so there's some other fun ones. I'll put some things together from Monday that talk about the land and where things are at, and probably throw in a few time references because time and space are so closely linked together.
So on that nearby, Hune, so yeah, thank you for putting that there. So I should have said then, Sukach, then whatever the nearby words, I'm sorry, I'm not in chat, doesn't have an open right now.
Okay.
Next to Petersburg, rather than saying Takua.
Yeah, like, well, this came up a couple times, and as we start talking about like it's near this thing, it's over by this thing, and I'll look up some references to that as well. I've heard a whole bunch of different ways, and this is important as we talk about traveling, being places. And if we go back to the clan migrations, like so many Raven clans down in Beam Canal, like Kiksadi, Anak River, a whole bunch of them just go back there and even further too. So it's really fun to talk about how they come about, these ones and these other ones. And yeah, and so there's a couple things that I'll put in there. And we'll look at them Monday.
In a kawu, so I could use that instead of the han in
think
reference, huh?
Yeah, hey nacha. And then there was a couple, like, we're gonna take a look at some of the language from Kak as well. And there's some similar things to that when he's talking about places nearby. Dane is another one. So like if you said Chilkoot, Dane, it's in the vicinity of Chilkoot Lake. So Dane is another one that works well. Like it's not there, but it was over there nearby. We had a fun conversation last night as I was departing. We were leaving intermediate Tlingit and walking to my office with some students, and one of them said, Nietzsche, yeah, Nietzsche, wait, do we And I said, well, doesn't have, it's like Tesh Nietzsche, just Eitini, yeah, Eitini, Ikayaka, we do, we Nietzsche. We But then I was corrected with my correction, which was really fun because the person was saying, here's the beach, because there's the lake. But then I was trying to say like the niche is really just for Eitini, for the salt water. And so if you have a beach by a lake, it's Ayach or Ayach, depending how close you are to the water. But then they were telling me, well, no, when we were designing the campus, we wanted this to look exactly like the whole thing to be structured like it's a beach going towards the ocean facing, even though we know it's a lake. And so I thought that was really neat because like, well, it's a metaphor. It's Nichu Waya. So that was a really fun conversation. So just to say, well, because we could also say, wait, if you're gonna say kicks Dane, I assume you're right there in the bay though. Still, you haven't left that area. If I'm thinking of how Dane would work, like it's still in the area of it. But if you're gonna leave and you gotta sort of travel to get out of there, then I would probably say, wait, kicks away kesh unashe. Na key, na key, hey nach away. It's from Kicks, it's not very far. It's northward, but and it's next to it. Because then there's some things you can also use some, I would assume like the time references would always have to do with kind of how long it would take you to paddle there, because that's what people were doing. So then, you get Nashliye or Nashle, which is far. And then you get Tesh Unashle, which is not far. And Tesh Unashle works for a time reference as well. So you got some Tlingit speaking kids are hungry and grumpy. Tesh Unashle kachtucha. It's not going to be long until we eat. So, and also if you need to tell the Tlingit speaking gang, get yourself ready. It won't be long till we get out of here by boat or car. Other thoughts or questions?
Well, just a thought. The reason I referred to Ganaktan into that, because I know a lot of people in this classroom are Ganaktan, even if we're not using the name Ganak at this point because of the migrations. And mine was about how we're all connected in that way. And so I just wanted to share about what I wrote.
Goodness, geez. And the responses that I gave, I'll just talk about them for a sec. I know, let's see, I was saying Tawan is the name for Anak Island. And then thinking about the Duktut story, one time I was visiting with Ḳuwuligáas'i, George Davis, and he was sharing with me that when he was about 14 years old, his uncles took him to that island where he tore those sea lions apart. And they told him, he says, this is where it happened. It's not just something we say. Like, this is where it happened. But then he told me, he's like, I was like 14. So I didn't pay attention. I didn't know where it was. So I don't know where it is. And he was upset that he had forgotten the location of it. And then I was wondering, Tashkanach Kusha. I was listening to some folks speak who were Kiksadi and others who were Hitan. And they talked about being up on Tashkanach Kusha during the flood. So I was like, oh, I wonder who all was up there in those ancient times. And I know several clans lived on mountaintops, not all the whole clan, like with Tashkwaidi, like we were all up there as far as I know. But some of them, like Dakwaidi, some went on and some went inland. And then they were Chish, I was looking in the chat, Chish, and then I used to hear stories that there wasn't very much land on the coast where we were used to living. So a lot of people made villages on top of the mountains. And a whole bunch of creatures wanted to just be on those lands. And so they would have their dogs around so they could bark at things and keep them away. And they would build these rock piles, and underneath it, they would have their ropes. And that's how they would tie their boats up. And someone told me that he knows where some of these ropes still are. They're still there today. But he says he's not going to tell anybody because people are going to go mess with stuff. People like to touch when they see it. And if I was told if you pick them up, it'll just turn to dust. That's what I was talking about that too. And then what was the third response I gave? It was neat to hear the names of the indigenous peoples in California and in Oregon. In both those places, you had lots of languages, probably especially in California, you had lots of indigenous languages, and those languages are in a lot of trouble right now, but they're trying to get them stronger than they are right now, which was fun, because I think when we first signed on, people were talking about better. Maybe tomorrow will be better, which I think would be Gwashsekan. Or I'd probably say Gwashsekanen iti yanach kekwake. Maybe tomorrow will be better than before. It's kind of fun. Okay, good stuff. Thanks, Cheese, for sharing. Really appreciate it. Let's see. On Monday, let's start with whoever didn't get to share. If you want to share something, a thought about migration, doesn't always have to be about Tlingit and the clans. It could be about all kinds of stuff. Like we had a story, when I was born here, moved here, like that's a migration, right? That's really fun stuff. Traveling, going, because there's a set of verbs we can also look at with those things as well. For a Wednesday class, I'll give you 1 week notice so you're not being tortured by work. I think this is what I want to try. Because a lot of us have made really amazing stories using photographs, which I think is great. But here's the new challenge. Share a short story and draw the pictures with your hand. And it's not an art contest. I know some people in here are like fabulous painters. They could be stick figures. They could be whatever. But what I want us to do is just use this creative part of our mind while using the language at the same time. And we're trying to plant the language in different parts of our tlaqi. So there, Monday, next week, migrations will continue. Wednesday, we'll start sharing our visual stories. They don't have to be super long, maybe 100 sentences. I mean, 10 sentences or so, however many you feel is right. And about anything you want. Sound okay? Not too torturous?
Like I was asked about and I don't know how to pronounce Anak River. Anak River?
UNUK?
Yeah.
Where
Is
is it?
that the Anak River?
Sounds like poop and you pick.
Well, it's a river. It has one of the rivers we migrated down. There's 8 of them, and that's one of them. There's like the Copper River, the Chickamin River, the Taku, and then that one's in there too. It's in a story about the rivers we came down, archaeological thing in that Celebration 2000 article that came out, that they were talking about the coastal migration and what that river is cited in that. And so I was wondering if there was a story on that, because they're going to put a mine up there and they're wondering if people have any ties to that river. And you know that we're always in here and talking about our migrations. And I was looking in beginning Tlingit at the ţuwuligáas'i, their migration. And my clan migrated down with the ţuwuligáas'i. When we went up as bears. When we came down as wolves. That's what we heard, was the wolf howling. And we went towards it after we came out from under. And in this archaeological sites in 2000, that book, where the heck is it, of Celebration, where they had those stories in it, that one has it in there. It's this one right here. And it has a name of one of those rivers. And they're asking us, it says, archaeological research give clues about life in Southeast Alaska 400 generations ago. And in there, one of the rivers is cited. I know this because I read it before. I haven't looked at it, but I thought that I would ask you about that. One of the rivers that we came down.
And
I'd have to look at it really hard. I think it's that one anyway. So do you know?
in there, I mean, I found it in the Thornton book. So
Okay.
it's it as Chickamin Plain,
Okay.
which seems, it says dreaming, which the Chunuk part, like, I don't know what the Nuk part would be on there. June is certainly as a noun, dreaming, and then there's a verb form, which would be our June. So yeah, that's a good question. I'll see if I could find anything on there. It's a good question. I'll have to take a look at it a little bit and find something over the weekend.
When I was,
I was going to look in that book. Excuse me.
One thing I looked at, I read a petition by Southeast Alaska Indigenous Transboundary Commission on that. So there's a petition from them. And they also use the name Junuk with the Nuk as well. And they just mention in one place Tanta Kwan and Sanya Kwan, but it's just a mention. They don't specifically name.
Geez, Junuk would make a lot of sense.
When I was teaching in fisheries years ago, somebody did a project about the Unuk stocks and the Chickamin stocks. And the research showed that the stocks were different and needed to be managed separately. So they're important for fish traditionally. And what is this Chickamin? Is that a Tlingit word?
What is it again?
Chickamin.
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 It's part of the Chickamin people. The Chickamin River is related to, I think it's the Chickamin, the Foam people in the 5 Eagle clans of Wrangell. Nanya Ayi, Kayash, Kedatan, Siknach Adi, ḳuwuligáas'i, and Chickamin. And Chickamin, I think, is related to the Chickamin. If I'm not mistaken, that's what I know.
And how do you
Goodness sheesh.
how do you spell that?
is exactly the way it sounds. Is that the one you're asking?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one.
It's just like a chicken, Chickm, Amin, Chickamin River. And I found that out from Esther Shea's book. Has a picture of it where they used to have their fish camp. When Esther did a book on what they did when they went up into and then it's illustrated. It's very beautiful. It's just a little handout, like we hand out those little handout books, and it's Chickamin River and it's Esther's story.
Huh. Wow. Okay.
That's how I've ever heard about it. But I know that in your migration book in here, where you're looking at ḵuwuligáas'i and page, I think it's 60 something or the other. It's listed in there under the clans in Wrangell.
The Ḳuwuligáas'i, is that it?
Well, yeah, Ḳuwuligáas'i. I'm pretty sure it's there. And let me see. Yeah, it says Ḳuwuligáas'i, people of the Foam, Chickamin River, Wrangell. It's on page 64. You just have a lot of information, Jone. I just have to remind you.
Did I write that? Okay.
Goodness, gee.
Okay. So this is, oh yeah, there it is, Chickamin. Okay, I'll see if I can find more stuff about that too. Well, now you guys are torturing me with work over the weekend. The second edition of the workbook might even be done after this weekend, at least my final edits, and then I'll push it back to Alaska and I'll see what they say. But it's pretty close, and it's I don't know. The first one was, how many pages is the first edition? Because this one is 330 pages. So I think I added about 100 pages to it.
Yeah, it was 246 on the first edition.
Yeah, so there's quite a bit more. Just thinking a little bit more deliberately about introducing objects, introducing subjects, introducing verbs, which kind of gets us to our work for tonight. Gonna cheesh, this is great stuff. Okay, so here we go. If you go to tlingitlanguage.com and under learning Tlingit, advanced Tlingit, there's a picture of this thing right here. If you want to just sort of download that, keep it on your phone, make it your screensaver, print it, get a tattoo, whatever you want to do to help you sort of remember this stuff. And we're going to start to sort of doing a slow walkthrough of what happens when you start changing one at a time. And then what happens when you start changing them and then moving it through the modes. That's where a lot of the magic happens, is learning how to do this stuff. So as we go through, there's a couple things that pop up before the verb. Chush, to the self. Whoosh, to each other. Hus, pluralizing a human, object, or subject, or both. Object pronouns are the ones the verb happens to, usually, although when we take a look at some of the language in Ḳuk, you have object pronouns that function as subject pronouns. That just happens sometimes. ḥuwuligáas'i, we move there. That's an object pronoun. You just got to learn which ones we have some rule breakers out there. That's totally fine. Happens to me, ḥat. Happens to us, ha. Happens to you, ih. Happens to y'all, ye. Happens to them or it, usually nothing. But if you have they did it to them, they do it to them, it'll be Both third person, it has to be Qa or q, someone or a person. Ut, something. And sh, to the self. Then we have the ones who are doing the verb. Ch, I'm doing it. T, we're doing it. I, you're doing it. Y, y'all are doing it. The third person, there's never anything there. That's why it gets really hard to see whether there's a pronoun there or not when it's a third person thing. Do, people do it or it happens. These are the main things we have to sort of just commit and learn how to start maneuvering them. A lot of it starts with just having this thing on hand. I try to make a little like a business card because Walkie Charles is an amazing UPIC teacher, and he says he makes this little card. And he says, this is your new American Express. Don't leave home without it. When I tried it with Lingi, it was so tiny, you just have to bring a big old magnifying glass as well. So I'll try and rethink that, but put it on your phone. I don't know. Cool, what's up?
Do you have another one like this that has a thematic conjugation classifier and stem? Just examples.
Yes, we'll start looking at some with the thematic, and when you start to add that, what happens? So yes. And so we'll start with this, then we're going to start adding one thing at a time and start adding another thing. But yeah, good question. But then once you start getting into the verb prefix, the subject is the most important part, because the object sits in front of everything. You can learn how to add that. This is the part that causes most of the smooshing together. Okay. So we'll start by looking at objects. Khat, ha, I, yi, zero or a, ha or k, at, and sh. Sometimes hus. So going through, can somebody tell me how to say, so here's our examples.
On or off?
This shows us the theme, object, zero group classifier, A. It's marked as high, so it shouldn't go low. This will never go low. It's a state verb, it's g conjugation. And then this says object intransitive, which is just repeating what's already there. If it says intransitive, it means either the object or the subject is not there. And that's why it says object, because there is only an object. You cannot add a subject to this verb. You have to use a different verb if you want a subject. For O to be good, I usually think of this as good. I don't really think this is used that much for fine or pretty. I think that's pulled out of the dictionary. But I would say just think of this as good. Okay. These little squiggly guys, whatever they call them, that means there's your fill in the blank thing. So you should expect object pronoun yak-a. So there's the form of the verb we're looking for. This is what we call an imperfective state verb. It is that way right now. So with that, and let's all take turns. If you're really nailing them and guessing them, great. But take a pause and let someone else try it. We'll just try and say maybe one at a time. So can someone tell me how to say, I am good?
Yak-a.
Khat yak-a. So everybody say khat yak-a.
Okay.
And so even though we're like changing these, to be honest, the answers are right there on the left. So there's no big mystery here. Put this in front of that and you probably got it. Going back here, the one thing that I will point out, if it ends with a hyphen, you write it as part of the verb. If there's no hyphen, it gets to be its own word. So we are good.
Are you okay?
Hayak-a. For the Tlingit speaking world, when people come and they're like, are you guys evil? Take. Hayak-a. We're good. You are good.
Okay.
Yak-a. Y'all are good.
Yak-a.
Yak-a. They are good. Singular they.
Yake.
Yak-a. People are good.
ḥuwuligáas'i.
Yeah. But we're going to say ha yak-a. There's a little bit of back and forth. I think usually it's going to be k. But if there's some weather thing, because ḥuwuligáas'i, most people would probably say, oh, good weather. But if you say ka yak-a, it can't mean both, because technically ḥuwuligáas'i could be good weather or good people. But if you stood up to say the people are good, and you said ḥuwuligáas'i, they might look outside. Ka yak-a.
Atyake.
That's a
Atyake.
yeah, what? Atyake. Something is good. Kind of a strange one. Probably wouldn't really say that, but just grammatically showing you how it would work. There it is. We had a couple of these with the love verb, because we'd be like, we love, it was getting weird. Where like, or like saying, you love me. And this elder said, I wouldn't say that to anybody. I was like, well, what about like, I'm happy that you love me? Like, no. Well, can you say it for me? It fits the pattern. So some of these things we will talk about that, like if it's not a culturally appropriate thing to say, but using it as a tool to show the patterns, right? Okay. They all are good.
On that last one, would it be more like, because there's like you wouldn't say, do you love me, like you were just saying? You think they said it a long time ago like that because like you talk with confidence, like someone loves you, you don't have to ask them, right?
Yeah, because I try that as well. I'd be like, well, if I said, do you love me? Like, why would I say that? But it's like, well, I'm writing my Tlingit soap opera. I need this line for the soap opera. Okay.
Hasyek-a.
Asyak-a. Yeah, away. So the beauty of this, there's a whole bunch of state verbs. Chitzin, chichan, you're changing the object. And so now you can cycle through these object pronouns. Now people could be strong and stinky and dirty and wets and lates. And there's a whole bunch of things people could be now. And you can, in really just sort of mastering this set of pronouns really opens the door for a lot of stuff. Any questions?
Yeah. Masakuwati. That's what's the weather like, but can that be what are people like as well?
Yeah, it technically could be, but my experience has been if there's a ku version that has to do with weather, you would say masakayati. And then someone would, I don't know if people would really answer that. They'd be like, I don't know how the people are. But they might tell you some of the tendencies that people have. I guess you might get a judgment done.
You said masa?
Yeah. That's how you'd say wasa in test.
Oh yeah, I get that. I thought you were saying it generally, sorry.
Oh. Yeah, I've taught in Tesla enough times that when people speak in their dialect, I'll just speak back in their dialect. Same with the ḳuwuligáas'i. I just try to imitate everybody. You should see me in Hawaii trying to do like fake pigeon Hawaiian. That's a bit of a poser over there, but I was really trying. I can't remember some of the phrases I saw in like, okay, anyways. All right, ready for next one? This verb, object, ya for the face, ka, the surface, s, that's the classifier, on. So this is another ga state verb. Most state verbs are ga verbs. It's just kind of an interesting thing. Object and transitive, again, only an object. There's no subject there. Nobody's making anybody good looking. Not saying they can't. I'm just saying not with this verb. For O to be attractive, good looking, pleasant faced. The imperfective form, yaksa'an. So that's what we're going to be putting pronouns in front of. So who's going to say it? Go ahead, say it. I am good looking.
I want to say it. Yaksa'an.
Everybody say it. Chat yaksa'an.
Chat yaksa'an.
Yaksian.
And you're not even bragging, you're just
On too.
practicing a phrase. We are good looking.
Ha yaksian.
Everybody. Ha yaksa'an.
Yaksa'an.
You are good looking.
Yaksa'an.
Everybody. Yaksa'an.
Yaksa'an.
Y'all are good looking.
Yaksa'an.
Yaksahan.
Yaksa'an. They are good looking.
Yaksian.
There's the pattern. People are good looking.
Hasyaksian.
They, them all, they all are good looking.
Yaksian. Oh, okay.
Yaksa'an.
There's no, because there's no yaksa'an for weather, is going to be the one that we probably go for first. Yaksa'an.
Yaksian.
And you couldn't really use at for this because that's something doesn't have a face. This doesn't work. This works for people. They all are good looking.
Hasyaksian.
Hasyaksa'an. Any questions about this? Yi yaksa'ani ah. You good looking people. So filtering through the object, just seeing how that changes. In this case, it doesn't affect the verb a whole lot. You get a perfective on there, it's going to affect it a little bit. And we'll look at how that works.
To go back there a second, we can't say ut yaksa'an. Is that right?
Yeah, you couldn't say it. I don't think you could.
That's a good looking pie.
Well, it would just be yaksa'an. So, I would think that the pie somehow has a face that is really attractive because the face is built in here. But so this is the case where there's quite a few verbs in Tlingit where it works well for people, but it doesn't apply to other things. Like shakshaqi, that's people. And so same thing. That's gonna be an object verb. So khachaqi, hashaqi, ishaqi, yishaqi, shaqi, hushaqi, hashaqi. It follows those same patterns, but that one as well. I guess if you had a statue or something, but then that would just fall under, because this third person right here, it could be a non-human thing. Like that doesn't really get differentiated right here. Like you could say yaksa'an, you're talking about a cat. If you want to say the cat is attractive, has a good looking face, you could. But for like a mountain or something, it might work as a metaphor, but they'd probably prefer it to say like Shah Katan or Kashaqi Yisha. You start to switch to these non-human kind of verbs.
So say if the aliens arrived and they're really good looking people that come through, but we're not too sure if they're exactly people. maybe a different, could that be not yaksian?
Well, okay, so you're driving down the road and you saw like a monster, but you thought it was an
Right.
attractive monster.
Yeah,
You could say, "Qanaytaya khwasatin ko ayaksaan." I saw a
okay.
monster, but it was a good looking one. So
Thank you for entertaining that.
yeah, so this would still work, I think. So the ut is really like some indefinite thing. It's some, it works similar to this, where it's like someone, a person, just a thing. Something is that, but it's called like, we call it usually like the fourth person non-human. And there's certain verbs where if you put this in front of it, it just has a whole different meaning. Like if you said, yesterday I drank water. If you say, yesterday I drank something, people would interpret that as yesterday I was drinking alcohol. So there are a few things where it changes the meaning. Like I said something one time to Kasech, and she said, "Did you say atsagu?" I was like, "No, but what would that be?" She's like, "That's sex. It's atsagu." I thought you said atsagu. I was like, "No, but now I won't forget it." So the ut in front of things, something ut-u, like that becomes a very powerful noun built from a verb. Okay.
Monet,
Ah,
on your stem up there or your root, it says +2. So that means that there's two ways for this.
yeah. So well, so this little X thing, when you see that little X, that means this is always the same. It is always long and low, on, even like in the future. Like, see, he's got some baby, that baby is just cute. You say that baby's gonna be good looking. You would say yakagursa'an. But it would stay low instead of going high like most futures do. So when you see this little X, that means it doesn't change, the vowel doesn't change. Doesn't go short, long, you know how a lot of them do that. The number 2 means there's some other on verb root, which is different. So this is marking the stem variation. This is marking that there's a homonym, another one. Good
So
call.
would the homonym also be invariable?
Nope.
It
So
would be
this,
totally different. Huh?
yeah, but you could have something where there's maybe a whole bunch of on verbs that have to do with being pleasant or something, like tusha on. That comes from this same verb root, and that would also be invariable. It's pretty common that, so like once you have a verb root, you can build, other verbs get built out of that root. If it's the same root, it will most often do the exact same things as far as like what the stem variation will be. So going right down this list, hatushaan, hatushaan, itushaan, yitushaan, tushaan, kutushaan, hastushaan. That one, the objects are changing just the same, but also this on part stays the same. And same thing, like sometimes I'll tell my kids, because you boss kids around all the time. And sometimes they try not to be too bossy. So they're gonna go play with some kids and I'll say, on. Y'all are gonna be nice. And it's a future thing, but it's also just sort of just a statement, because or you could say whooshi took. No, now I gotta change it. See, yi took on. Whooshi took on. Y'all are gonna be nice to each other. So just like, again, like the grammar opens the door for just moving it around. But then that's what all these things are coding. And it's just like continuing to like, what's that thing do again? What's that thing do again? And your brain will hold on to stuff. And then pretty soon your brain will be like, I don't know, I got too many groceries to carry. I'll just put that. But then you'll come back and you'll pick that thing up later.
Gunchish.
Any other questions?
Tuthlion is kind, right?
Yeah,
So then the L changes it.
yeah. And it probably just because Tusa'an sounds, it might just sound funny in Tlingit, just like, not like it sounds like anything else, but just Tusa'an and Teguxa'an, like Tusha'an might just sound better to the Tlingit ear. So sometimes you'll see these, like, why would they go to an S, why to an L? And sometimes it's about the sound combinations. What it seems like to me is like, as people were sort of, and who knows how this stuff all formed thousands and thousands of years ago. Okay.
Goodness, sheesh.
Sheesh. So the next steps are going to be, we'll look at a verb that has a subject now, because these ones, there's no subject. So it's just the object that changes. For this one, we'll start changing the subject to see, like, now someone's going to be loving us up. So we'll go through and we'll see what happens. And as long as that subject doesn't change, it'll be sekhan all the way down. Then we'll move to the inside of here. We'll start looking at thematic prefixes and what those do and how they generally work. Then we'll look at subjects. And then we'll move on to something else where we start getting just a little bit more complicated. But think about this stuff as you're going through. Over the weekend, if you didn't hear anything about migrations, and it doesn't have to be like, don't feel pressured like now you need to tell us the origin of all your people and all these people. Like, just talk about something. And it could be, we used to live in this part of town and then we moved over this part of town. I think that's just fun stuff to do. Inspired by Tuk. So over the weekend, I've got some things to research. You've got some things to do. If you didn't talk about migrations, you're ready to do that on Monday. We'll start with that in Tlingit so we could talk. I'll give responses and feel free to respond to each other. That's pretty fun. I think I have to start sort of saying there must be one response by a student to everything. We'll get there. Second thing is start working on your illustrated story about it. Just have fun with it. Don't feel pressured to make something. It's not like I'm asking you to make a comic book that we're going to publish. We're just sharing it with each other. Just another way to use the language with visual tools that we're creating. The third thing is just continue to look at the Tuk story that's on our class webpage. Find any sentences that you think you want to ask about, because we're going to start walking through and looking at how some of these sentences work. Big concepts that are going on in Shah Dag and his Duyuchatangi. Okay, any questions or anything? Okay, Juan Tlane has a document for you.
Goodness, geez. We've been privately chatting.
Oh.
Goodness, geez.
All right. Okay. Is that all you need right now? Goodness, geez.
So I have another question, which was like when you're looking at documents and there's like either a link or something that doesn't work anymore, how do you want us to share that information with you?
What does that, what do you mean?
Like when we're in clinkitlanguage.com,
Oh,
and if
on some broken link or something?
Yeah.
Send me an email and let me know kind of what it is and what page it was on. Because it is to them. So yeah, sorry about that.
No, if I ever remember it, I'll do that again.
Yeah, if you encounter it, try to email me right away so I can. I'll try and fix it. Okay. And Chish,
I have one.
Oh
yeah, I have one little comment. I enjoyed the meeting with the beginning classes when they introduced themselves. One of the young ladies said, my Tlingit name is Shkik, and that's my daughter's name. So I thought, I wonder who she is. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, so Ida and I are going to work over the weekend as well on compiling massive email list of everybody who's in the language classes right now. And trying to figure out how we can stay in touch with each other. The plan is the first week of October is we're gonna try to bring all the classes together one during the first week of every month. So we're gonna try and bring that. They used to do that and have like little foods and stuff, which we can't really do right now.
Yeah.
Our situation, but bring a snack, have a snack, whatever. But the biggest thing is probably seeing each other's faces and visiting with each other. And the whole purpose is building the language community. People we can talk with, hang out with, and it's exciting. A lot of people studying Tlingit right now.
Right.
Okay, good to teach you, Han. Have fun torturing yourself on the weekend.
Oh, she's gone. Darn. That was fast. I was gonna ask her about something on a postcards I'm sending in Tlingit to her back and forth. We're doing pin pal thing, get pin pal.
Oh,
but I wanted to ask her about, she is somebody who is a proofreader, right? Or she does, not proofreader, editor, right?
I do.
Does she do that kind of work? Like books?
Who's that?
Such click.
Oh, I think so. It seems like she's a really good at catching things. She'll find stuff all the time you know about it.
All right, I heard her say something like that. And I wanted to talk about doing something. I wanted to ask her about if she did do that, like I heard her right, on the potlatch of Ḳuwuligáas'i that you see the pictures of with all the details that I've collected over the years and the pictures and what's going on.
Oh, yeah, okay.